Welcome to the Jacksonville Momcast, a podcast dedicated to telling the real stories of local Jacksonville moms. Sponsored by Jacksonville Beach Moms, each month we'll cover topics to help you navigate mom life on the First Coast. Thanks for joining us as we tackle all things motherhood and more with a focus on the 904.
Well, welcome to episode 29. Today we have Heather Hausenblas with Wellness Discovery Labs. So Heather, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
All right. Well, I've been living here in Jacksonville, Florida for about 20 years, originally from Canada. My husband and I moved down because I took a position at University of Florida as a faculty member there for several years. But then since we moved to Jacksonville and absolutely love it, and am also a faculty member professor at Jacksonville University now. And a few years ago, I started my own company called Wellness Discovery Labs, kind of pulling in some of my expertise as a health expert and researcher and writer and author. And one of the main goals of our company is to do evidence-based health and wellness. And companies will come to me, whether they have some type of a product, let's say it's a mattress or a supplement that they feel, let's say, may help people sleep better or improve their mood. And what we do at my company is we design studies to test to see if it actually really does make people, happier, healthier, and make them sleep better.
That's amazing. And so you kind of touched a little bit about your work in the health and wellness industry. I know you've also written some books. You do quite a bit in that field. So tell us a little bit about some of your work with health and wellness.
So done a lot of research in the area that is really health psychology. So taking a look at how our health behaviors affect our overall health. And those are things like sleep, how much we exercise, our diet, supplementation, our stress levels, and how it affects our overall health and ways that we can try to improve it. So over the course of my career, I've done a lot of research and published it in scientific journals. And typically the only people that read those articles are other scientists. So early on in my career, I felt it was really important to take this research and try to present it in more of a digestible format for people, break it down and write it that way. So I did some writing for like US News and World Report and different media outlets, kind of breaking down the science of, what are the 5 tips, for example, to sleep better that are science-based, just not what's out there in social media. So I was very, very passionate about that. I've written some textbooks that I joke the only people that read the textbooks are my students because I require them. I require them to. And over the last couple of years, I've begun to branch out and try to get into writing more nonfiction, science-based books. And my most recent one was not something I ever set out to write, but it kind of evolved naturally when our oldest son, so we have three boys, and our oldest son about 4 years ago was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. And for parents, it's one thing when you get sick, it's another thing when your child gets sick. And I thought that I was healthy and my family was healthy. This is what I do, until all of a sudden, we're not. So I went on medical leave from work and would get up at, 4 or 5 in the morning and begin to research the autoimmune disease that he had to try to figure out how to get him healthy again. And over the course of it, this book evolved, kind of the science behind it, but the stories and, the challenges of healthcare versus health. And so I recently published that to try to present something to people that they can read that will say, okay, these are ways that you can become healthy. Healthcare plays a role, but we don't necessarily need to blindly follow healthcare because health can mean many, many different things to many people. So it's a passion that I have to kind of break down the science to say, this is what the science says you need to do to be healthy and well.
Excellent. And I think so many moms can relate with their career trajectory, kind of following the path of their children's needs. And so what's the name of the book? Because we'll put a link to it in our show notes.
Yeah, the book is called Invisible Illness. And it's one of, and he has Crohn's disease. And it's one of these, challenges as a parent standpoint, when intuitively that there's something wrong, but, visually your child looks fine, and you're can see them continually getting sick and not getting the answers that you need from healthcare, because it can be a challenge and almost a puzzle to pull everything together. But I guess one of the things as a parent is go with your gut. If you think that something is wrong, then there is something wrong. You have to be that advocate and be forceful, for when you actually get the answer that you need and advocate for them.
Absolutely. So you wear a lot of hats, as we mentioned. Let's talk by starting with your research. And how would you define health research?
So health research, I'm looking at not like disease and what we call like healthcare, but it's more like taking people who, let's say we call like normal, and how they can lead even happier, healthier, and really fulfilled lives. And that's really what it's looking at. So for example, with exercise, most people don't engage in exercise and don't do it, yet it's one of the most important things we can do for our health. So my research has studied why people don't exercise, how we can get them to exercise more, and what are some of the health benefits associated with it. Like, for example, people will continually say, and what I've studied, and the number one barrier is people will say, I don't have time to exercise, or I'm too tired to exercise. And the research that I've done and many others has clearly shown that after you exercise, you will actually have more energy. You'll have what we call more vigor. You'll be more content. You'll be in a better mood. So it's trying to get people to understand that they do have a large portion of their health that's under their control, because probably 60 to 70% of why we're healthy is related to what we do. So whether we exercise, how much we sleep, what we're eating, are we spending time outside, are we connecting with other people, is all really, really important. So I'm trying to say, this is what the science says, and this is what you need to do, and try to give little tips and health habits along the way for people that are digestible.
And with this work, do you typically look at or work with women, men, families? I've, as a mom and a woman, I found that I feel like women are a lot more in tune with health related issues, maybe than men, maybe not. But what do you see on that end?
I've looked at the whole spectrum of from kids up to older adults, but typically focused in on adults. And I've done a lot of research with women. For a while, I was doing research during pregnancy and into the postpartum period, because this was an area that's really not looked at, and was focusing on a large part on physical activity and how much women can move during pregnancy and into the postpartum. And what we clearly found was that during pregnancy, women exercise less, they move less, and it kind of stays that way during the postpartum period. And that's not good for a variety of reasons. We now know, and it's very clear, that women moving during pregnancy is very, very good, not only for themselves, but also for their baby, and into the postpartum as well. And what we do know is that moms that are physically active are more likely to have kids that are physically active as well. They serve as that role model, and they have more power over this than the dads do. So what I mean by that is the mothers have a stronger influence on their kids' activity level than the dad does. So it's really important that we tell women during pregnancy, if everything is going well and that they're healthy and that they continue to move and do what they can throughout the pregnancy and keep it going during the postpartum, because it's going to have a whole host of health benefits, even from a shorter labor and delivery.
That is fascinating. I had never heard that before, so I'm glad you shared that. Thinking about the last 2.5 years, which have kind of been a hot mess for a lot of people in the terms of their health for a variety of reasons, what have you seen in how COVID has impacted people? Not necessarily getting sick with COVID, but our habits or routines. I know a lot of people became more active during COVID because we had to get outside, and we had, you were looking to escape people. So you went for a walk. A lot of people bought pets, which, kind of gets you out moving a little bit more. But what have you seen on your end in terms of the research and, where we are as a society as a whole now versus 5 years ago?
Right. It's an excellent question. And COVID did many things. And one thing is that it gave people a chance, I think, to slow down and to reflect a little bit on the who they are, their health, their wellness, and their goals. And there's been honestly an explosion of research out there on what are the health effects, of COVID, and what do we see kind of the lingering effects. We know that it had a detrimental effect overall on people's mood, their anxiety levels increased, well-being, well-being went down. And we see that right across the board with more people, and the social connections, which were really a challenge during COVID. And there's a fascinating area of research on social connections showing that it's probably one of the best things that we can do for our overall health, and outperforms a lot of these other things that we think are so important for our health, like smoking, for example, or even eating a healthy diet. What tends to come out as one of the strongest determinants of our health is how well we're connected with friends and family, and whether we state that we're lonely or not. And we know that people who express that they're lonely will tend to live upwards of about 8 years less than people who state that they're not. So I think it shows that, yes, healthcare is really important, but so is our social being and who we're connecting with. And I really encourage people to make an effort to connect with friends and family. It's important. It's something that we need to foster. And even those infrequent connections that we have, like the person at the Starbucks, the barista who's making your coffee, say hi, get to know, their names, smile at a stranger. And even those simple things throughout the day are social connections that can help people and boost their overall well-being. And what I strongly encourage families to do is try to eat meals as a family. I know it's typically not possible 7 days a week, but the more that you can do it, the better. Not only will you be eating healthier, but for your kids, we know that the kids will actually have a better vocabulary if they eat more as a family, and they will actually have a higher IQ and perform better at school and have a higher GPA. So there's a lot of importance coming down to these things that we tend not to think about as a health behavior important for overall health and wellness.
That's very interesting, but not surprising about the social connection aspect. Okay, so let's switch gears. You're also a professor at JU. So tell us a little bit about that, what you teach, and how you like JU.
Coming from UF to JU is a big change. Go from a big public to a small private. Love the change and the intimacy where you can really get to know your students in the small, class sizes. The campus is beautiful and walkable. And the classes that I teach are actually an exercise psychology class and a health psychology class, and also one that's focused on evidence-based, health and wellness. And that's where I break down the science for the students, and I try to pull in a lot of research directly related to college students and what they can do to be, healthy and happy, and what the science says towards that.
And how do you like working with college kids? And how I know they're a whole different breed. How is that different from working with adults?
They bring a different type of energy and enthusiasm for what you're talking about. And I love the inquisitive nature and how they ask the questions, and we have great discussions. And they're not scared to ask questions and be surprised about something and be willing to try different things. A lot of the activities and assignments that I give in my class are focused on, here is what we've learned, so let's implement this. Like, for example, last class I was talking about the science of happiness and talking about how spending too much time on your device is not good for your overall happiness. So let's do a challenge and try to unplug for 3 days, and let's see what happens, and let's pull in some of the science. So doing things like that, and then for them to realize that, oh, I really do spend a lot of time on my device, and it's not good for my overall health. So it's things like that where they're still at a point where they're excited to learn. That's why they're at university, and trying to figure out what they want to do for their next, the next stage.
And do you have a lot of kids that are going into the health field, or is your class more of a general overview class, or is it more specialty?
It's more specialty. So the vast majority of students in my class want to do something within the health or the healthcare field. And they're just trying really to to decipher what exactly that is. Often it's, I teach at the undergraduate level, so it will be a stepping stone, because oftentimes the students now are going on to grad school to get that advanced degree that they need.
Great. So you're also an author and you're a public speaker. Tell us about, what is your favorite topic to present on? And you're already smiling. I know people don't see this part of the interview, but I can't wait to hear, because you seem already excited to talk about it.
It's probably what I call the social prescription, and what's one of the best things that we can do for our health that we often don't realize. And that's the whole aspect of socially connecting with others, and how we can go about to do that, and what the science says about it. Like, for example, if someone expresses that they don't feel that they have any close friends, and they feel lonely, what we've done, or what other scientists have done from a science standpoint, is said that is the equivalent of smoking about 15 cigarettes a day, stating that you're lonely. So when you can put it in these kind of health contexts of what it means to, what we consider one of the number one killers out there, then it's really an eye opener to say, okay, we do need to, put time and effort into our social connections, into our family, into our friends, and who we're talking with and engaging with, because it's so important for our overall health.
That's such a great way to look at it. And I think so many people, so I have teenagers, so especially I would say parents of teens that are on devices a lot, especially coming off COVID, where that was kind of their only connection for a while there. To put it in a term that you can visualize, like I can visualize someone smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Like I know what that looks like. I was born in the 70s. My parents smoked, like I know what that is like. I know what it smells like. I know the gross taste. And so to equate it to something like screen time or loneliness, like that's just such a powerful image. Today's episode is sponsored by our very own Jacksonville Coloring and Activity Books for Kids. This is a 3-book series that includes a Jacksonville coloring book with 25 coloring pages of popular sites from around the First Coast. It's perfect for kids and adults who love to color. Then there's an ABCs of Jacksonville coloring book. We start with A for Arboretum and go all the way through Z for Zoo. This book is great for preschool age kids and can also give some wonderful ideas for things to do around Jacksonville. Lastly, we have our Jacksonville activity book. This book has loads of word searches, dots to dot, mazes, and so much more activities, and they're all themed around Jacksonville. We'll put a link in the show notes for where you can purchase them. Pick up one or all 3. They make a great gift for your favorite Jacksonville kid. So one of your areas of expertise is the effects of exercise and activity on body image. So tell us a little bit about that work.
Yeah, so we became interested, in it, trying to figure out, why some people exercise and why some people don't. And when you ask people, a big motivator, a big reason why people start to exercise is because they want to try to change, the size and shape of their body. But then what happens if that's somebody's main motivator for exercising? They typically drop out and they don't stick with it. And one of the main reasons why is that it's not an instant fix, right? You can't start an exercise program and within 2 weeks, have lost, 10 pounds and the size and shape of your body has changed dramatically. It's a long-term thing. And people don't fail to realize that. So we began to delve a little deeper into this to try to understand what we can do from a science standpoint to get people to realize that, yes, when someone exercises, they do have better body image and they're more satisfied with their body, but it also can be a deterrent to whether somebody actually starts to exercise or not. We know that people who express that they don't like the size and shape of their body are very, very uncomfortable to go to a gym setting where people are wearing revealing clothes. There's lots of mirrors, all around them. And what happens with these individuals is that they tend not to get the benefits, the mood benefits, the mood enhancing benefits of exercise. So typically when someone exercises, they're going to report, less anxiety. They're in a better mood afterwards. People who have high body dissatisfaction and you put them in a co-ed gym situation with mirrors and revealing clothes, they're going to be excited to leave that environment because it's very stress provoking for them. And we don't want to do things that we don't like. So kind of the take home is that you need to find an environment where you feel comfortable. And maybe that's, in your home gym. Now there are so many videos that people can do right from the comfort of their own home. But it's important to know that, your body satisfaction can play a role both in motivating you to exercise, or for some people, it can be a demotivator. For people to realize that exercise and movement should be a long-term thing and not just a quick fix. And it takes time. Health and wellness just doesn't happen in one day. It's what you do day in and day out. And it's never too late to start moving. Even people in their older adulthood who start to move and start to exercise more, it still has significant health benefits.
And have you seen or have you studied anything about the difference between like a high impact activity versus taking a walk around the block and more of that low impact, like you said, just kind of getting moving? Like, is there a difference in how it affects you or affects people with body image issues?
It's a good question. We typically have had this belief that to exercise, it needs to be what we call vigorous, where you're huffing and puffing, you can't talk to your neighbor. And that tends to be, painful and not fun. And what we do know is that walking is probably one of the best activities you can do for your overall health. And you don't need to go out and do, an hour-long walk. Even a couple of minutes can have a significant health effect. A fascinating study that just came out recently showed that even walking a couple of minutes after dinner had significant health effects from a cardiovascular standpoint. So the point is that do what you enjoy doing. If you want to go out for a walk with someone, you can only do it for 5 minutes. Well, that's great, because we used to think that to be healthy from an exercise standpoint, it was just, let's say, the 30 minutes or the 60 minutes you spent at the gym. But now there are certain countries that are coming out with what we call 24-hour movement guidelines, stating that our whole day matters. So yes, going to the gym is important, or exercising, but so is standing more during the day and getting off your screen, and the light activity that we do, like let's say the standing or walking up and down the stairs, that is actually important for our health. And even fidgeting can be a health behavior. You can burn significant amount of calories. People who are actually high fidgeters can burn upwards of 800 calories a day from just like their toe tapping and moving around. And then your sleep is also a type of movement. So the point of this 24-hour movement guidelines are that, yes, your exercise is important and your light activity during the day. And if you exercise during the day, then you're going to sleep better at night. And they're all related. If you don't sleep well at night, then you're probably not going to want to move as much during the day. So the point is that everything counts during the day. And it's not just this vigorous activity. If you don't like vigorous activity, then don't do it. You've got to find what you like, because if you like it, then you're going to continue with it.
And I think that's such a tough mindset to break for some people, because I believe there's a generation that was raised that if you don't have that 60 minutes or that 30 minutes 3 times a week or whatever they would ask you about at the doctor, then you're failing. Basically, you're not getting what you need in terms of movement. And so it's almost like a psychological shift to be thinking about, like you said, standing at your desk and, other activities that can kind of get you moving that aren't necessarily going to the gym for a 60-minute workout session.
Right, exactly. And people, you're so right. People would feel like a failure if they couldn't meet the guidelines. And the typical guidelines now are you need about 150 minutes a week of moderate activity. And if you're going to do vigorous, you can do 75 minutes. But if you're doing less, that's still okay, because it's still going to have some health benefits. It typically kind of peaks around that 150 minutes, but if you're doing more, there's still going to be, additional health benefits. So we tend to have this failure, mentality of, if we're not meeting the guidelines, then why bother? But no, you should bother. Every little bit matters towards your health. If you've got an opportunity to stand versus sit, then why not do that? It'll be better for you.
And since you work with college kids, I'm curious, do you see a difference in the mentality of this younger generation versus older people? who maybe were raised with that idea and, asked at every doctor visit, are you working out 30 minutes a day for 3 days a week? Versus I feel like the young whippersnappers are more into standing desks and having treadmills at their desks and things like that. Like they're a little more innovative when it comes to movement.
I would agree. They kind of think a little bit more, outside the box. And in general, in my classes, and the students that I'm teaching are fairly physically active and meeting the guidelines. But what tends to really stand out for them is they know the importance of exercise, but then to tell them that, sitting is not, sitting for extended periods is not good as well. And how long do you spend sitting during the day? And I even have these pop-up standing desks that I bring into the lecture hall, and they pop it up on their desk and they will stand. And we have fit bikes on campus where the students can hop on them, and it's got a little stand and everything for them that they can put, whether it's their, some type of device or their notes, and they can be cycling and also doing their homework and their studying at the same time. So trying to get the point across, especially with students who are really crunched for time, to combine these things together. So not only can you study, but you can also be moving at the same time. And they're very open to different ideas about what is health and what is wellness.
I would think they would be. That's really cool about the bikes. I had never heard that. Okay. So all of that, how does that translate to helping to raise a generation of healthier kids? And as parents, what are some things we can implement based on that philosophy with our own children?
It's tough. The screens, the electronics have really taken over. And if there's one thing or a few things I can state, is to have, limit that amount of time that kids are spending on it. I know with our youngest, I have, I monitor his screen time, and it does shut down at a certain time at night. And he can't sleep with his device in his bedroom, so that you can do these types of things to try to get them to understand the importance of health and wellness. One of the things that I did, which was actually really effective, is there was an app called Yuka, which you can very easily just scan different products you have in your house. And it's largely like food and cosmetics. And you just scan the barcode, and it gives it a rating from 0 being terrible to 100 being really, really healthy. So for me, it was great with my 13-year-old to be able to do this. And we went around the kitchen with certain things that he liked to eat, from like cereal to some types of protein bars. And they were ranking really, really low. And he was like, well, I'm not going to eat this anymore, because it wasn't coming from me saying that it wasn't healthy. It was coming from this app showing how unhealthy it was. So the point is that if you get your kids involved, right, there's one thing as a parent where we can nag and say, well, you need to, shut off your computer, or, turn your phone off, and we can nag at them. But when you get them actively involved and they can actually see that it's not so good for them, then that, I think, is where it really makes a bigger impact.
And I also think that you can use technology to your advantage as a parent. There's so many apps out there now that require you to walk or move or explore in order to, earn points or coins or whatever it is. You just have to know what they are and try to get your kids to use them. We did some hiking over the summer, and my 16-year-old actually made us all download this app, and it identifies different plants and insects, and then you earn points for however many you earn. And I'll have to find the name of it and put it in the show notes, but it was great. And the kids were like super engaged, and it wasn't a chore to be outside and be exploring. But if I were the type of parent that said absolutely no phones on our walk, then I would have lost that connection with them. So I do think technology can be awful, but at the same time, it can get you to your end goal as well.
Right. I agree. And you bring up a good point. It's to find that balance and see where you can go from that. I love what you did on your hike with that. And kids, I mean, we're not going to get around it. we're a technology society now, so we try to use it more to our benefit. I know in a lot of the research that I now do, where we're tracking, let's say, people's how much they move during the day or how well they sleep, we'll get them to self-report that, but then we'll also have them wear like a wearable so that we can get objective measures, whether it's like an Oura Ring or a Fitbit. And kids in particular like that type of feedback. Like say, well, how many steps did I take today? Or how long did I sleep? And that's really important, because for them to actually see that and to track and to begin to understand that, oh, if I didn't get enough sleep, then I'm going to be more tired the next day and I'm not going to be able to focus as much in class. So, giving them the power towards their health and wellness is important.
Absolutely. So important. And there's so much available at their fingertips and so much information that you can share with them. And almost immediately, as soon as you wake up in the morning, your watch will tell you how many hours you slept. Okay. So let's talk about teens and body image. Specifically with girls, but I know that it's also an issue with boys as well. What are some warning signs when it comes to teens and body image? And when, as a parent, should you be concerned with some behaviors or self-talk that might be detrimental?
Yeah, it's when, most of us are aware, right? For good or bad, what the ideal physique is. And, and we see it out there in the media all the time. And whether it's right or wrong, that's what it is. And for women and teens, it tends to be more of a thin, a lean, but yet a little bit of a tone, right? A little bit of a fit physique. And for men, it's lean, but tends to be very, very fit and muscular physique. And the way to, obtain that is through exercise and diet. And what I like to tell people is, yeah, you can be aware of it, but it's when people internalize that ideal and state that that's what I need to be happy and to be healthy, then that's where we see from a research standpoint that it becomes a health issue. Because just because somebody is really lean does not mean that they're healthy. And to have the six pack really comes down to being extremely, extremely lean. So it's realizing that food is important fuel for us, and not to put so much power into your actual body size for your overall well-being. And that's where we see when individuals internalize that's what I need to look like, and then they begin to really restrict how much they're eating to try to achieve this ideal, or engaging in a lot of exercise. And I've done some research into not only how we don't exercise enough, but how some people can actually exercise too much, exercise excessively, and potentially become addicted to it. And we do see a strong relationship with people who internalize their body dissatisfaction and can engage in excessive exercise, which is just exercising to an extreme where it loses its value. For example, I had interviewed one individual for a study, just to put in perspective that people understand how much excessive is. And he said it was becoming expensive for him because he bought 3 different memberships because he didn't want each gym to know how much he was working out. So in the morning, he went to one gym, in the afternoon, he went to another gym, and in the evening, he went to a different gym. And this is somebody who would be exercising, 6+ hours a day. And we do see that there is a relationship between disordered eating and excessive exercise as well, where some individuals will engage in a lot of exercise to try to control their and lose weight. And that's where you see these red flags as a parent to be aware of.
Those are some good tips. You mentioned in the beginning of our interview about moms being a role model for movement and exercise for their kids. What are some other ways moms can start teaching kids some of those healthy wellness habits early on? Like we kind of talked about teens, but I'm talking about like when you got itty bitties, preschool age, that early elementary age, when a lot of those habits are really starting to form. What are some things parents can do?
Yeah, it's critical to be that role model. I think one of the family meals are extremely important, and it's what we have visible that really makes an impact. So I say, you go in your kitchen and have a fruit bowl or a vegetable bowl and have it out there, because the simple fact of just having that out on the counter, your kids and also you are more likely then to eat your fruits and vegetables. So it's these small little things that we can do that can really have that large impact. We think that we need to make these major changes, but it can be as simple as putting a fruit bowl out on the island and making the junk food less accessible, like maybe moving it to the back of the pantry. And even by doing that will make an impact, and families are more likely then to eat their fruits and vegetables. But parents need to be role models as well. If parents are on their phones all the time, then their kids are probably going to be on it as well. I encourage people to get outside. We live in Florida; it's beautiful, most of the year, and we do know that when people spend more time outside, they're healthier, they're in a better mood. And even when you exercise outside, it has more mood enhancing benefits than if you're exercising inside. So it's these little, these small little things that we can do throughout the day that can have that big impact.
Those are some good goals for everybody too. Some small, start small. If somebody listening today wanted to make one small change to start living a healthier lifestyle, what would you recommend?
Probably the one thing that I would recommend, and that we tend not to think about enough from the importance of a health standpoint, is our sleep. And it's really the foundation of overall health. And you think about from the standpoint of, we could survive really without exercising, and we can survive without eating a lot for a long period of time, but we need to sleep. And if you, after about 3 or 4 days without sleeping, your whole body will shut down. So we don't put enough emphasis on it. And it seems to be that one thing that we'll let go and say, well, I'll just go to bed, later, because I need to do this, and not get the adequate amount of sleep. So what I would like to encourage not only adults, but kids, is try to go to bed at about the same time every night and wake up at about the same time every day. And what I tell my students is, the way that you know that you've had enough sleep is that you're waking up without an alarm. If you're waking up without an alarm, then that's telling you, if you're waking up with your alarm, that's telling you that you have not had enough sleep. And what's most important from a health standpoint is that you're consistent with when you wake up in the morning. So even if for whatever reason, let's say it's, New Year's Eve, and you stay out later that night, it's still important to wake up at about the same time in the morning, because then your body, it's circadian rhythm, resets. And that's really critical for people's overall health. So I'd like people to really pay attention to how they're sleeping, how long they're sleeping. And also what's really important is their sleep quality. So, you can be spending 9 hours in bed, but are you waking up a lot? Are you tossing and turning? What is the overall quality? And from the research that I have done with sleep supplements and sleep aids, what tends to be has the strongest impact on improving people's sleep is the environment. So what I mean by that is, you want to have a comfortable mattress. You want to sleep in a cool, a dark environment that is quiet, and set up a bedtime routine, and get you, and not have your devices in your room when you're sleeping. And by getting a good night's sleep, it'll affect everything else during the day, where you'll have more energy, you'll be in a better mood, you'll be better able to focus, you'll actually eat healthier as well, because when we are sleep deprived, the next day, that's when we tend to crave, the high calorie, sugary, more junk food types of stuff. So that would be my tip, is to pay attention to your sleep, try to get adequate amount of sleep, and just, do these small little tips to improve your sleep.
That's so great. And we talk about sleep so much when kids are little and how important sleep is. And then I feel like as you become an adult, it becomes like pushed to the back. So that's a good reminder for everybody. What's your favorite thing about being a mom in Jacksonville?
Oh goodness, I have a hard time, I think, pinpointing it down to one. I think coming from Canada and moving down here, to me, it's like almost every day is beautiful, and the sun is out, and to get outside with the kids, we're so fortunate. We have the beach, we have the river, we have incredible greenery. We have so many parks here within the city to take advantage of it, because I really do feel it's like nature's playground. And we need to get out and do that. So that's something that I've always enjoyed with the kids. And, coming from Canada, my philosophy was there's not bad weather, there's just bad clothing. And embrace the weather, whatever it may be, and get outside. And we really have an incredible opportunity with the beach and the river and all the parks that we have.
That's a great answer. I agree that it's so, especially right now in the fall, we've had a beautiful fall here in Jacksonville, thankfully. Anything else you'd like to add before we close out?
Just how much I've enjoyed talking to you. This has really been a lot of fun. I appreciate what you do and connecting moms with different levels of expertise together to talk about what we do.
Well, thank you so much, Heather, and tell everybody where they can find you.
I'm LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, and and my website, wellnessdiscoverylabs.com, and you can email me, and I'm always happy to connect.
Excellent. We'll put links to all of that in our show notes, and thanks for listening.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in. If you've enjoyed this episode of Jacksonville Momcast, be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and follow us at Jacksonville Momcast on all the social medias for show updates and more information about our guests. To learn more about what you heard today, visit our show notes at jacksonvillemomcast.com. Thanks for listening.